Please subscribe my channel. I never thought the moment that broke my family would happen in a hospital waiting room, under flickering fluorescent lights, while a nurse offered me coffee I didn't want. Up until that day, I still believed, stupidly, that blood meant something. That loyalty mattered. That if you kept showing up, eventually people would see your worth. I was wrong. My name is Daniel Harper. I'm 34 years old, and at the time all of this happened, I lived in Columbus, Ohio. On paper, I was doing fine. I worked as a project manager for a regional construction firm, owned a modest 2-bedroom townhouse, and had savings I'd built slowly over years of skipped vacations and careful budgeting. I wasn't rich, but I was stable, reliable, the one everyone called when something went wrong, especially my family. I grew up as the middle child. My older brother, Ryan, was the golden one. Star athlete in high school, charm for days, the kind of guy teachers loved and rules bent around. My younger sister, Lily, was the baby. Sensitive, emotional, always going through something. I was the glue in between. The responsible one. The fixer. My parents used to joke that I was born 40 years old. At first, it felt like a compliment. As we got older, that role solidified into something heavier. Ryan chased one risky business idea after another, each ending with a different version of bad luck. Lily bounced between majors, jobs, and relationships, always landing back at my parents' house with a suitcase and tears. And me, I stayed steady. I helped when I could, sometimes when I couldn't. No one ever asked if I wanted to. It was just assumed. When my dad, Thomas, had his first heart scare, I was the one who left work early and drove him to the ER. When Lily needed help with rent just for a couple months, I wired the money without a lecture. When Ryan's startup collapsed and creditors started calling, guess who helped negotiate payment plans? My parents called it family support. I called it exhaustion. Still, I showed up. Every holiday, every birthday, every crisis. I told myself that being dependable meant something. That one day, when I needed them, they'd remember all of it. The day that changed everything started with a phone call at 5:17 a.m. It was my mother, Karen. Her voice was tight, controlled, the way it got when she was trying not to panic. "Daniel, your father collapsed," she said. "We're at Riverside Methodist. They think it's serious." I didn't hesitate. I threw on the first clothes I could find and drove through empty streets, heart pounding. By the time I arrived, Ryan and Lily were already there. Ryan paced the waiting room, phone glued to his ear, whispering urgently. Lily sat hunched in a chair, mascara streaked, clutching a coffee she wasn't drinking. No one looked at me when I walked in. I asked a nurse for an update, checked in at the desk, and sat down. Minutes stretched into hours. Eventually, a doctor came out and explained that my dad needed immediate surgery. A blockage. Risky, but necessary. My mother broke down. That was when the practical questions started. Insurance, coverage gaps, recovery time, and, quietly, money. Ryan pulled me aside near the vending machines. He smelled like cologne and stress. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice, "there's going to be a shortfall. Insurance won't cover everything up front." I nodded. I already knew where this was going. "I've got some investments tied up," he continued. "And Lily, well, you know her situation." I did know. Lily was unemployed again. Ryan clapped a hand on my shoulder. "You're in the best position, Dan. Just for now. Just for now." The phrase echoed like it always did. "How much?" I asked. He named a number that made my stomach drop. "That's most of my emergency fund," I said carefully. Ryan frowned. "It's Dad." Of course it was. I agreed. I didn't tell anyone else. I transferred the money that afternoon while my father was still in surgery. I watched the confirmation screen like it was a closing door. The surgery was successful. Everyone hugged. Tears flowed. Relief filled the room. My mother squeezed my hands and told me she didn't know what she'd do without me. I believed her. Over the next few weeks, I took time off work to help with recovery logistics, doctor appointments, medication schedules, physical therapy paperwork. Ryan visited when he could. Lily was overwhelmed and needed space. Life slowly returned to normal, or so I thought. 2 months later, my mother invited all of us to dinner. She said she wanted to talk as a family. That phrase made my chest tighten, but I went anyway. We sat around the dining table I grew up eating at. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, normal food for what was about to become a very abnormal conversation. My dad cleared his throat. "We've been doing some thinking," he said. My mom smiled tightly. "About the future." Ryan leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, confident. Lily stared at her plate. "We want to make sure things are fair," my mother continued. "Between you kids." I nodded slowly. My father slid a folder across the table. It landed in front of me. Inside were documents, estate planning, beneficiary breakdowns. I scanned the pages once, then again. My name appeared exactly once, under a clause labeled loan repayment responsibility. I looked up. "What is this?" Ryan spoke before my parents could. "We figured since you covered the hospital costs, it made sense to formalize it." "Formalize what?" I asked, my voice flat. "The loan," my mother said gently. "You'll be reimbursed. Eventually. Eventually. But," my father added, "to keep things balanced, we're adjusting inheritance distributions." I flipped to the last page. Ryan and Lily were listed as primary beneficiaries. I was not. My chest felt hollow. "So let me get this straight," I said slowly. "I emptied my savings to help Dad, and now I'm being written out to keep things fair." My mother reached for my hand. I pulled away. "You don't need it like they do," she said softly. That was the moment something inside me finally broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. And once it broke, it never went back together the same way. I didn't argue that night. That surprised them. For years, I had been the calm one, the reasonable one, the guy who explained himself, who tried to make them understand. This time, I just sat there, staring at the paperwork like it belonged to someone else. My mother mistook my silence for acceptance. My father cleared his throat and began talking about recovery timelines and physical therapy again, like the conversation was already over. Ryan smirked, not openly, but just enough for me to catch it. The look said, "Of course it worked out this way." I folded the papers neatly, placed them back in the folder, and slid it toward the center of the table. "I need time to think," I said. My mother nodded too quickly. "Of course. We knew you'd understand." That word again. Understand. I left shortly after, ignoring the tight hug my mother tried to give me at the door. The drive home felt longer than usual. Every red light gave my thoughts another chance to spiral. "They don't need it like you do." I replayed that sentence all night. The next morning, I checked my bank account. The numbers looked unfamiliar now, smaller than they had in years. I opened my budgeting spreadsheet, the one I updated religiously, and stared at the gap where my safety net used to be. I realized something then that I hadn't allowed myself to admit before. If something happened to me tomorrow, no one in that family would catch me. They expected me to catch them. Always had. But the idea of the net going both ways, that had never crossed their minds. Over the next few weeks, small things started to stand out. Ryan posting photos online from a weekend trip to Nashville. Lily talking in the family group chat about signing up for another unpaid internship because it felt right. My parents mentioning renovations they were considering for the house now that Dad was feeling better. No one mentioned paying me back. No one asked how I was doing. I stopped offering updates. When my mother called one evening to ask if I could help Lily cover a car repair, I said no. Just one word. Calm. Controlled. There was a pause on the line. "Oh," she said. "Are you okay?" I almost laughed. "I'm fine," I replied. "I just can't do that." She sighed, the familiar disappointed sound. "Well, I guess we'll figure something out." The call ended shortly after. An hour later, Ryan texted me, "Really? Over a few $100s?" I didn't respond. That no became easier the second time. And the third. Each refusal felt like reclaiming something I'd misplaced years ago. Then the pressure escalated. My father asked me to come by one afternoon. When I arrived, Ryan was already there. Lily too. I should have known it wasn't a casual visit. They sat me down like I was the one in trouble. "We're concerned," my mother began. "You've been distant." "I've been busy," I said. Ryan leaned forward. "This isn't about being busy. You're pulling away. I looked at him. From what? Silence. My father cleared his throat. We're a family, Daniel. Families support each other. I nodded. I agree. Then why are you acting like this? My mother asked. I took a breath. Because support doesn't mean sacrifice without limits. Ryan scoffed. You're being dramatic. That was it. I reached into my bag and pulled out copies of my bank statements from the hospital transfer. I laid them on the coffee table. That's what I contributed, I said. Not emotionally, not hypothetically, financially. My parents stared. I didn't hesitate, I continued. I didn't negotiate. I didn't ask for guarantees. I helped because I thought it mattered. My mother's eyes filled with tears. It did matter. Then why am I the only one being treated like a liability? I asked. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. We're just trying to be fair, my father said. I looked directly at him. Fair would mean acknowledging that I took the biggest risk. No one answered. Instead, my mother said the words I'll never forget. You've always been strong. You can handle it. There it was, the core of everything. They didn't choose me because they trusted me. They chose me because they assumed I wouldn't say no. I stood up. I won't be signing those documents, I said evenly. My mother gasped. Daniel, I also won't be contributing financially anymore, I added. Not to emergencies, not to lifestyle choices, not to make things easier. Ryan stood abruptly. You can't just abandon us. I met his eyes. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm opting out of being used. The room erupted. Accusations. Raised voices. My mother crying. My father demanding I calm down. Lily saying she didn't ask for this. I didn't raise my voice once. I left. Over the next month, the fallout was immediate. Ryan called twice, angry and sharp, accusing me of punishing the family. Lily sent a long message about how hurt she was that I'd changed. My parents alternated between guilt and silence. Then came the certified letter. It was from my parents' attorney. They were formalizing the loan, with repayment scheduled over an extended period. Interest-free, conditional on available funds. Available funds. I laughed out loud when I read it. That was when I made my decision. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. I hired my own attorney. A quiet woman named Susan Miller, who specialized in financial disputes. She reviewed everything and looked at me over her glasses. You've been generous, she said. But generosity without boundaries becomes liability. Within 2 weeks, she sent a response outlining terms they hadn't expected. A legally binding repayment schedule, clear deadlines, consequences for default. The reaction was explosive. My mother called sobbing. My father accused me of betrayal. Ryan sent a message that ended with, "You've changed, and not for the better." They were right. I had changed. And for the first time in my life, that felt like a good thing. The first payment deadline passed without a transfer. I wasn't surprised. I waited another week. Still nothing. Susan, my attorney, remained calm. "We follow the process," she said. No emotion. Just steps. The official notice went out shortly after. Formal language. Clear expectations. The kind of document that doesn't argue or beg. It simply states reality. That's when the panic set in. My mother showed up at my townhouse unannounced one Saturday morning. I watched her through the front window as she stood on the porch, wringing her hands, glancing at her phone like she might bolt. For a moment, the old reflex kicked in. Open the door. Fix it. Make it okay. I didn't move. Eventually, she knocked. I opened the door just enough to step outside, closing it behind me. "Daniel," she said, voice trembling. "Please, we need to talk." "We've talked," I replied. Tears streamed down her face. "We raised you better than this." I almost corrected her. Instead, I said, "You raised me to be useful." That stopped her cold. She tried again. "Your father is stressed. This legal stuff, it's hurting him." "I didn't create this situation," I said evenly. I responded to it. She reached for my arm. I stepped back. "Please," she whispered. "Just give us time." "You had time," I said. "Years of it." She left shortly after, shoulders slumped, smaller than I'd ever seen her. I closed the door and felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Peace. A week later, Ryan called. Not angry this time. Measured. controlled. Let's be adults, he said. We don't need lawyers. We already have them, I replied. You're blowing this out of proportion. I smiled slightly. That's interesting, coming from someone who benefited the most. He exhaled sharply. You know Mom and Dad will always prioritize Lily. I know, I said. That's why I'm done competing. Silence. Then, quietly, so that's it? That's it. The second deadline came and went. Susan filed the next motion. That was when things really unraveled. My parents were forced to refinance their home to meet the repayment terms. Renovation plans disappeared overnight. Ryan's casual spending dried up when the family safety net tightened. Lily moved back home again, suddenly very aware that resources were limited. And for the first time, the weight they'd always placed on me shifted back where it belonged. They didn't call as much after that. The family group chat went quiet. Holidays came and went without invitations. I won't pretend it didn't hurt. It did, but it hurt differently than before. Cleaner. Honest. I wasn't being excluded because I was invisible anymore. I was being avoided because I was no longer controllable. Months passed. The payments continued, on schedule this time. Smaller amounts. Reluctant, but real. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I simply logged them and moved on with my life. I took a vacation for the first time in years. Nothing extravagant. Just a quiet trip to Asheville, North Carolina. Long walks. Early mornings. No emergencies. No guilt. One evening, sitting on a balcony overlooking the mountains, I realized something that hit harder than any argument ever had. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. My parents eventually asked to meet. Neutral ground. A coffee shop halfway between our homes. They looked older. Tired. My father spoke first. We didn't mean for things to turn out this way. I know, I said. That doesn't mean they didn't. My mother nodded slowly. We leaned on you too much. Yes, I agreed. You did. No yelling. No dramatics. Just truth. We don't know how to fix this, she admitted. I considered that for a moment. Start by understanding that love isn't measured by how much someone gives up for you. They nodded. Not fully. Not yet. But enough. When we parted ways, my mother hugged me carefully, like someone learning new boundaries. My father shook my hand. It wasn't a reunion. It was a reset. And that was enough. Today, my life is quieter. Smaller circle. Stronger walls. Ryan and I barely speak. Lily sends the occasional message. Polite. Distant. I no longer chase their approval. Because here's the truth I wish I'd learned sooner. Being the strong one doesn't mean being the silent one. Being dependable doesn't mean being disposable. And family loyalty that only flows in one direction isn't loyalty at all. Walking away wasn't revenge. Standing my ground was, if you've ever been treated like the safety net instead of a person, you're not alone. And saying no doesn't make you heartless. Sometimes, it's the bravest thing you can do. If this story resonated with you, share your experience in the comments. And if you want more real stories about family betrayal, quiet revenge, and reclaiming your worth, subscribe so you don't miss what's next.